At 2:07 on a rain-soaked Tuesday morning, my husband sent me a photograph that should have broken my heart, but the classified authorization code reflected in the hotel window nearly destroyed a Navy operation instead. Ryan stood on a balcony in Cabo San Lucas with Vanessa Hale pressed against his shoulder, both holding champagne beneath resort lights. Vanessa wore the pearl earrings my father had given me after my first deployment, and Ryan wore the watch I had bought him for our 15th anniversary. Vanessa and I are leaving. The house and Harbor Shield are ours now. Don't embarrass yourself. I stared at the message, not because I doubted what I was seeing, but because the dark glass behind them reflected the open folder in Ryan's hand. Across the top of one page was a procurement routing number I had reviewed 6 weeks earlier. It belonged to a restricted Navy supply contract supporting 400 sailors scheduled to deploy from Norfolk before the end of the month. I am Lieutenant Commander Claire Morgan. I had spent 18 years in Navy logistics learning that disasters rarely announce themselves with sirens. Most began with a number that did not belong, a signature placed where it should not be, or a shipment listed as delivered when no one on the pier had seen it. Ryan called that instinct an obsession. His family called me a glorified bookkeeper. None of them understood that the wrong box, missing at the wrong hour, could leave sailors without medical filters, emergency batteries, or secure communications. I enlarged the photograph. The routing number was unmistakable. So was the blue authorization stripe used only after internal review. I had never approved the document Ryan was holding. My hands stilled. I typed 4 words beneath his message. Check the authorization logs. Then, I opened my government-issued laptop. My compliance archive contained timestamps, vendor references, and non-classified copies of every approval I had legally reviewed. Harbor Shield Logistics appeared 12 times in the previous quarter, always as a secondary supplier. I had questioned 3 invoices because the delivery weights did not match the listed equipment. Ryan said the discrepancies were clerical. Vanessa, who managed contractor accounts, laughed over dinner and said I could find a conspiracy in a grocery receipt. I changed the passwords to my personal banking, canceled the supplementary cards connected to my accounts, and removed Ryan's access to the encrypted family drive containing tax and property records. Then I activated a preservation hold on the business files stored on the private server I legally co-owned with him. It did not delete anything. It prevented deletion. At 2:31, someone in Cabo attempted to enter the server with Ryan's credentials. Then the same person tried Vanessa's account. At 2:36, an administrator override was attempted using a digital certificate linked to my name. The system rejected all 3 attempts and recorded their locations. I saved the logs in 3 places, then called Commander Maya Reynolds, a Navy JAG officer who once told me the difference between suspicion and survival was documentation. She answered on the 4th ring. Claire? Ryan left with Vanessa, I said. Silence followed. I'm sorry. They have a restricted procurement file in Cabo. Her voice changed immediately. Do not contact them again. Preserve everything. I'm notifying the proper office. Already done. Of course you have. By 4:00, rain hammered the roof of the brick house my father had left me before Ryan and I married. His shoes, coffee mug, and photographs remained. One picture showed us at my promotion ceremony, Ryan smiling while an admiral pinned new insignia to my uniform. That night, he complained everyone had congratulated me and barely noticed him. I had mistaken resentment for loneliness and spent years making myself smaller so he could feel larger. At 6:48, hard knocking struck the front door. 2 members of Naval Security stood beneath the porch light. The senior investigator introduced himself as Special Agent Daniel Mercer and asked to come inside. I led them to the dining room, where I had arranged the property deed, account records, and server logs. Mercer studied the folders. Your husband reported that you locked him out of jointly owned property, froze operational funds, and interfered with a Navy contractor after discovering an affair. I expected that version, I said. The deed showed the house had belonged to me before the marriage. The bank records proved I had removed Ryan from my cards without touching his business account. Mercer reviewed the server logs. You didn't shut the system down. No. I stopped anyone from altering stored records. Why? I handed him my phone and enlarged the reflected document. His expression changed when he recognized the routing number. He asked me to open the vendor history. 27 Harbor Shield invoices appeared. 14 carried my digital approval. Those are not mine. Each approval had been entered late at night on dates when I was aboard ship or inspecting facilities in another state. The total reached $2.3 million. The listed goods included water filters, medical kits, radio batteries, and rescue beacons. Mercer selected the newest invoice. It claimed 8 pallets had arrived at Pier 12 earlier. I had inspected that pier that morning. No pallets had been there. I searched Harbor Shield's registration. The address appeared. The company was registered to a beach house owned by Ryan's mother. Mercer closed the laptop slowly. How many people know you found this? You, Commander Reynolds, and whoever tried to erase it. My phone vibrated. A message from Ryan appeared. Open the system now, Claire. You have no idea what you're risking. I turned the screen toward Mercer. He photographed it. Do not answer him. I wasn't planning to. Outside, dawn began lightening the rain, but 27 false invoices glowed on my screen. Ryan thought he had abandoned a wife he could humiliate. He had no idea he had just alerted the officer trained to follow every missing dollar, false signature, and shipment that never arrived safely. By 9 that morning, I understood Ryan had not simply stolen money from the Navy. He had built the theft around my name. Special Agent Mercer remained at my dining room table while 27 Harbor Shield invoices glowed across my laptop. Each document looked legitimate: correct formatting, valid contract numbers, realistic delivery schedules, and my digital approval placed exactly where regulations required it. Whoever created them understood Navy procurement well enough to imitate every step. Mercer asked me to separate the records I recognized from those I did not. I marked 14 approvals as fraudulent, 7 as suspicious, and 6 as legitimate purchases altered after my review. The distinction mattered. A false signature could make me a victim. A genuine signature attached to a changed document could make me look careless or involved. Commander Maya Reynolds arrived before 10 and read the first invoice silently. Medical water purification units, she said. $340,000. The unit price is inflated by 40%. Were they delivered? Mercer asked. I opened the receiving report. 8 pallets were listed as accepted by Chief Petty Officer Maria Torres at Pier 12. I knew Maria. She had served under me during a humanitarian deployment after a hurricane destroyed 2 coastal hospitals. This signature may be false too, I said. Mercer called the warehouse office, identified himself, and asked Maria whether she had received 8 pallets from Harbor Shield. Silence followed. Sir, I was instructed not to discuss contractor deliveries without authorization. Who instructed you? Mr. Ryan Morgan. Maya's pen stopped moving. Mercer ordered Maria to report to the investigative office with every receiving log she controlled. Ryan had reached into my chain of responsibility and trained people to treat him as though he carried military authority. He was a contractor whose proximity to senior officers made junior personnel nervous. I had watched him build that influence for years and mistaken it for ambition. Maya turned to me. Did you ever give him access to your digital certificate? Never intentionally. 3 years earlier, after surgery on my right hand, Ryan had helped organize files at home. He knew where I stored tax documents, scanned signatures, and old contract templates. I remembered him asking why the Navy used so many authorization formats. I had explained because he was my husband, and trust makes ordinary conversations feel harmless. Mercer requested a forensic examination of the private server and warned that investigators would review my government devices. You may be placed on administrative restriction. I understand. Understanding did not prevent the pressure in my chest. 18 years of service could be reduced to a copied signature and a story told by the man who betrayed me. At 11:20, Captain Samuel Hargrove called. Claire, report to my office at 1300. Bring no files unless investigators authorize them. Yes, sir. Until then, do not access procurement systems. The line ended before I could ask whether he believed me. Maya watched my face. Administrative procedure is not a judgment. People remember the restriction before the explanation. While Mercer coordinated warrants, I traced the money through corporate filings. Harbor Shield had no warehouse, employees, or distribution license. Its registered agent was Ryan's younger brother, Caleb. Payments moved from Harbor Shield into 3 accounts: a property company, a vehicle leasing firm, and a consulting business controlled by Vanessa. The pattern was not theft followed by spending. It was laundering disguised as operations. One transaction tightened my stomach. $48,000 had been paid to a private aviation company 2 days before Ryan sent the Cabo photograph. The flight had been funded with money billed to emergency rescue beacons. Maya leaned closer. Your husband used deployment funds to fly away with your friend. Not just my friend, the contractor responsible for validating the invoices. At noon, an encrypted email arrived from the forensic analyst. My digital certificate had been exported 11 months earlier from the private server to an external device. The export occurred at 1:16 a.m. while I was aboard the USS Arlington during a readiness inspection. The login used my password, but home security footage showed Ryan entering my office 6 minutes earlier. For 11 months, he had prepared this while living beside me. My phone rang from an international number. Mercer nodded for me to answer on speaker. Ryan's voice arrived sharp. "Open the server." "No. You are freezing legitimate contracts. The investigators can decide that." His tone softened. "Claire, Vanessa made mistakes. I was trying to fix them. If you cooperate, we can keep this private. Tell them you approved the invoices and forgot." Maya wrote, "Let him talk. You want me to confess to fraud. I want you to protect the family." "Which family? The one in Cabo or the one you plan to leave in prison?" He inhaled sharply. "You always make everything dramatic." I looked at the stolen authorization records reflected in his photograph. "You sent me a farewell message beside evidence." His voice hardened. "If this operation fails, every sailor affected will blame you." "No, Ryan. They will blame the person who stole their equipment." I ended the call. At 12:42, Maya received another forensic update. 6 legitimate invoices had been modified after I signed them. Quantities were doubled, delivery sites changed, and Harbor Shield inserted as a secondary supplier. Then she opened an attachment recovered from Ryan's business email. It was a draft message to Vanessa, dated 3 weeks earlier. "Once Claire takes the fall, the Navy will settle quietly." My uniform hung upstairs, pressed for the meeting with Captain Hargrove. For the first time in my career, putting it on felt less like an honor than armor. Ryan had not run because he believed our marriage was over. He had run because he believed his plan was complete. He had mistaken my trust for permanent protection. What he did not know was that he had left behind the one thing I had spent 18 years learning to protect: the record. Captain Hargrove did not ask me whether my husband had betrayed me. He asked whether the Navy could still trust me. At exactly 1300, I entered his office in full-service uniform and stood before the same desk where he had recommended me for promotion 2 years earlier. The rain had stopped, leaving the harbor beyond his windows, gray and motionless. Commander Reynolds sat near the wall with a legal folder on her lap. Special Agent Mercer stood beside the door. Captain Hargrove did not invite me to sit. "Lieutenant Commander Morgan, pending the initial investigation, your access to procurement systems is suspended." "Understood, sir. You will surrender your government laptop access card and secure token." I placed each item on his desk. My fingers remained steady, though the small pile looked like 18 years of service being dismantled one object at a time. Hargrove studied me. 14 disputed approvals bear your digital signature. 6 additional documents were modified after your authorization. A vendor connected to your husband received more than $2 million for equipment that may not exist. "Yes, sir." "Did you approve any Harbor Shield payment outside normal procedures?" "No, sir." "Did you ever share your certificate or password with Ryan Morgan?" "Not knowingly." His jaw tightened at the final word. "That is not the same as no." "No, sir, it is not." I could have blamed Ryan immediately, described the affair, or shown anger. None of that would change the records. Hargrove leaned back. "Until investigators establish the facts, you are restricted from contacting suppliers, warehouse personnel, or members of your procurement team. Sir, 400 sailors deploy before the end of the month. Several disputed invoices involve their emergency equipment. That readiness issue has been reassigned." "To whom?" His expression hardened. "You are not in a position to question my decision." The words landed harder than I expected. I had spent years building the tracking system now being used to investigate me. I had missed birthdays, holidays, and nights at home because readiness did not pause for personal inconvenience. Now I was expected to stand aside while someone else searched through a system designed around my judgment. "Yes, sir," I said. Hargrove's voice softened slightly. "Claire, I have known you for 6 years. That does not allow me to ignore what appears on those documents." "I would not ask you to." "Then help them prove what happened." I saluted, turned, and walked out without looking back. The corridor seemed unusually long. Sailors passed and greeted me, but several noticed the missing access badge on my uniform. News traveled quickly on a base, especially when silence created space for speculation. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone held 9 missed calls. 5 were from Ryan's family. 3 were from reporters. 1 came from Chief Petty Officer Maria Torres. I could not return it because of Hargrove's order. Maya joined me beside my car. Mercer will contact Maria through official channels. She sounded frightened this morning. Then the safest thing you can do is stay away until she is protected. I looked toward the harbor cranes. Ryan knows the sailors deploy soon. He is using the schedule as pressure. He is counting on you to panic. He should know me better. Maya almost smiled. He knows the wife who protected him. He may never have understood the officer. We drove separately to my house, where a locksmith replaced the final exterior lock. Ryan's mother, Patricia, arrived before he finished. She stepped from her silver SUV wearing a cream coat and the expression she usually reserved for restaurant managers who failed to recognize her. Caleb, Ryan's younger brother, followed. He was the registered agent for Harbor Shield, although he had once told me he worked only in real estate. Patricia stopped at the edge of the walkway. You have gone too far. Good afternoon, Patricia. Ryan made a personal mistake. That does not give you the right to destroy his company. The Navy is investigating his company. Caleb crossed his arms. Because you reported him after he left you. Because invoices carrying my stolen signature billed the government for equipment that was never delivered. His face changed for less than a second. It was enough. You do not know that, he said. I know Harbor Shield is registered to your mother's beach house. Patricia looked at Caleb. What is she talking about? He ignored her. Open the server and let us correct the paperwork. The locksmith stopped working. I glanced at him, then back at Caleb. Correct it or erase it? You always make everything sound criminal. You created a company with no warehouse, no employees, and no distribution license, then accepted millions in federal payments. Which part should sound innocent? Patricia stepped closer. Claire, families handle problems privately. Ryan made it a federal problem when he used Navy money. You are his wife. That did not stop him from preparing to send me to prison. Her confidence faltered. Caleb took her arm. We should leave. Before they reached the driveway, a dark sedan stopped behind their SUV. Special Agent Mercer stepped out with another investigator. Caleb Morgan? Caleb froze. Mercer approached and produced a document. We have a warrant to search Harbor Shield's registered offices, storage facilities, and electronic records. Patricia stared at her son. Storage facilities? I answered quietly. There are none. Mercer instructed them not to leave the area without notifying investigators. After they drove away, he handed me a sealed evidence receipt for the copied server. We found something you need to know, he said. The false invoices are only part of it. He opened a photograph taken during the search of Ryan's office. On a whiteboard was a list of names, dates, and access levels. Mine appeared at the top. Beneath it were 6 junior sailors and civilian employees, each positioned beside a different stage of the procurement process. Ryan had not planned to blame only me. He had prepared an entire chain of people to absorb the crime. At the bottom of the board, beside Maria Torres's name, someone had written 2 words in red marker. We'll talk. My phone rang before Mercer could explain. The caller was Maria. Against the restrictions, I answered because fear does not wait for legal permission. She whispered my name, then said, Ma'am, Ryan knows I kept a recording. A door slammed on her end. Her breathing stopped. The line went dead. Maria's line went dead, and for 3 seconds no one in my living room moved. Then Special Agent Mercer took my phone, called Naval Security Dispatch, and ordered officers to locate her immediately. I gave him Maria's address, the route she usually drove from the base, and the name of the elementary school where her daughter attended aftercare. Fear tried to turn every possibility into the worst one, but training forced me toward facts. Maria had called from her own number. I had heard a door slam, no struggle, no second voice, and no sound of a vehicle. Mercer sent a second team to the warehouse and requested emergency location data. You violated Captain Hargrove's no-contact order by answering, he said. Yes. I would have done the same. 20 minutes later, officers found Maria inside a records annex near Pier 12. She was unharmed, but terrified. Someone had entered the building while she copied files, and she had locked herself inside a supply room. The intruder disappeared before security arrived. A side door showed signs of forced access, and the camera covering the corridor had stopped recording 12 minutes before Maria called me. That failure was not random. Ryan knew the camera schedule because Vanessa's company maintained the contractor network. Mercer left for the base while Maya remained with me. My official access was still suspended, but investigators could ask questions, and by evening they asked hundreds. The task force moved into a secure conference room at Fleet Logistics Command. I sat at one end without a laptop, while analysts projected my own procurement system onto the wall. Captain Hargrove entered after sunset, followed by Rear Admiral Thomas Keene's Chief of Staff and 2 auditors from Naval Supply Systems Command. No one discussed my marriage. In that room, Ryan was not an unfaithful husband. He was a contractor suspected of compromising operational readiness. The distinction should have made the betrayal easier to separate from my duty. It did not. Every fraudulent invoice still carried pieces of our life together. Passwords he learned while bringing me coffee, forms he saw while I worked at the dining table, and knowledge I shared because I believed marriage meant there were no hostile observers inside my home. The lead auditor, Commander Lewis, displayed the Harbor Shield transactions. We have confirmed that at least 11 deliveries were incomplete or non-existent. 5 additional shipments contained substitute equipment below contract specification. He advanced to photographs from the warehouse. Boxes labeled as military-grade rescue beacons held civilian devices with shorter battery life and no saltwater certification. If these had been issued, he continued, they could have failed during open water recovery. Captain Hargrove looked toward me. Did you flag this vendor before the current incident? 3 times, sir. My objections were closed after contractor representatives supplied revised documents. Which representatives? Vanessa Hale and Ryan Morgan. An auditor opened the revision history. My original notes had not merely been dismissed, they had been deleted from the final review packets. Someone had replaced them with a sentence stating that all discrepancies were resolved after physical inspection. I had never conducted that inspection. Commander Lewis asked, "Who could modify your comments? A system administrator, contracting officer, or approved maintenance vendor?" Vanessa's company held the maintenance contract. The shape of the scheme became clear. Ryan generated inflated invoices, Caleb controlled the shell company, Vanessa altered the records, and junior employees were pressured to confirm deliveries. My signature connected the stages and gave the fraud credibility. "They did not choose you randomly," Maya said quietly. "They chose the officer everyone trusted." Near midnight, Mercer returned with Maria and her attorney. Maria's uniform was wrinkled, and her hands shook as she placed a small digital recorder inside an evidence bag. "Mr. Morgan came to the warehouse 6 weeks ago," she explained. "He wanted me to sign acceptance forms for equipment that had not arrived. I refused. He said Commander Morgan had already approved everything." She looked at me. "Ma'am, I believed you knew. You should have called me." "He said contacting you would interfere with a classified review. Then he told me my husband's subcontract could disappear. Her husband had recently recovered from surgery, and their family depended on that contract." Ryan had found the exact pressure point and pressed, until fear looked like obedience. Maria activated the recording. Ryan's voice filled the room. "The paperwork is what matters. The shipment will catch up later. Sign the receipt, and everyone gets paid." Maria's voice asked whether I had authorized it. Ryan laughed. "Claire signs whatever lands in front of her. She is a bookkeeper with rank." I had heard his family use those words at dinners and holiday gatherings. Hearing Ryan say them while committing fraud produced no sadness, only clarity. Maria challenged him again. The recording captured his reply. "If Claire ever checks, she will be too worried about her career to make noise." No one spoke when the audio ended. Captain Hargrove looked down at the table. The officer who had removed my access now understood that my reputation had been selected as camouflage. Rear Admiral Keene's Chief of Staff asked whether the deployment should be delayed. Commander Lewis said critical inventory had to be physically verified first. I could not remain silent. "Sir, delaying the entire movement may expose operational timing. We can isolate the affected categories and use reserve stock from Hampton Roads and Mayport." Hargrove reminded me that I was under restriction. "Yes, sir, but I designed the contingency matrix." The room turned toward him. After a long pause, he authorized me to advise the audit team under supervision. For the next 36 hours, we checked every beacon, battery, medical filter, radio component, and water purification unit linked to Harbor Shield. We found shortages, but we also found solutions. Reserve stock was redirected. Verified suppliers accelerated deliveries. 2 ships exchanged surplus equipment. The deployment schedule held. Sailors who had once passed my office without understanding what happened inside began carrying boxes beside me through the warehouse. Near dawn on the second day, a young petty officer placed a verified rescue beacon on the cleared pallet and said, "Ma'am, people said you were suspended because you lost control. People say many things before they see the records." He nodded toward the completed inventory. "They are seeing them now." By afternoon, the task force confirmed that my preservation hold had prevented the deletion of nearly 9,000 files. The system had recorded another remote attempt from Cabo minutes after Maria's call. Ryan was still trying to erase the trail. Then Vanessa contacted Maya through an attorney. She wanted immunity, protection, and a private meeting. Her message contained one sentence that changed the direction of the investigation. Ryan did not create Harbor Shield to steal from one contract. He created it to compromise the entire deployment and sell the emergency replacements twice. Vanessa's attorney requested immunity before she would explain what Ryan meant by selling the emergency replacements twice, but the investigators offered only the protection the law allowed, not forgiveness. She arrived at Fleet Logistics Command the following afternoon wearing a navy suit and the pearl earrings from the Cabo photograph. For years, I had believed those earrings were lost after my father's funeral. Seeing them on Vanessa made something inside me go still. They were no longer sentimental objects. They were evidence of how comfortably she had moved through my life, taking what she wanted while smiling across my dinner table. Maya sat beside me behind the observation glass while Mercer questioned her. Vanessa avoided looking toward the darkened window, though she knew I was there. Her attorney began by stating that she had been manipulated by Ryan and had never intended to harm Navy personnel. Mercer did not argue. He placed photographs of counterfeit rescue beacons on the table. "Intent will be evaluated later. Explain the second sale." Vanessa folded her hands. Harbor Shield invoiced the Navy for new equipment. Ryan purchased cheaper substitutes and delivered some of them. The real military-grade equipment was ordered through another supplier, then redirected before reaching the warehouse. Redirected where? To a private storage facility in Portsmouth. And then sold to foreign commercial shipping companies through intermediaries. The room became silent. The fraud was larger than inflated invoices. Ryan had billed the Navy for critical equipment, supplied inferior replacements, and sold the genuine products elsewhere for additional profit. He earned money twice while sailors carried the risk. Vanessa said the plan had begun with batteries and water filters, items unlikely to receive individual scrutiny. When no one noticed, Ryan expanded to rescue beacons, medical equipment, and secure radio components. "Who approved the expansion?" Mercer asked. "Ryan did." "Who altered Commander Morgan's review comments?" Vanessa lowered her eyes. "I did." My body registered the answer before my mind accepted it. She had sat beside me at birthday dinners while deleting warnings I wrote to protect people she would never meet. Mercer displayed the email stating I would take the fall. "Did you agree with this plan?" Ryan said Claire would receive administrative punishment, retire quietly, and keep the house. He intended to frame a Navy officer for federal fraud. He said the Navy would avoid publicity. Mercer leaned forward. "Why, Claire?" Vanessa's face tightened. "Because everyone trusted her signature." There it was again. My reputation had not merely failed to protect me. It had made the scheme valuable. Vanessa explained that Ryan planned to trigger the final transfer during deployment week, when personnel changes and rushed deliveries would bury the transaction. After the ships departed, he would report internal discrepancies himself and direct investigators toward my approvals. The affair and Cabo trip were not the plan. They were his celebration of believing the plan had succeeded. "Why are you cooperating now?" Mercer asked. Vanessa looked toward the observation glass. "Because when Claire locked the server, Ryan told me to destroy the backup and disappear. He never planned to protect me either." I felt no satisfaction. Betrayal did not become loyalty simply because the betrayer discovered she was expendable. By evening, Rear Admiral Keene authorized a formal command review and public administrative hearing. Contractors, affected personnel, and representatives from Naval Supply Systems Command would attend. Portions involving operational details would remain closed, but the findings regarding fraud, readiness, and my conduct would be announced before the base's annual logistics ceremony. The date was 6 days away. Ryan returned to Virginia the following morning with private counsel. Investigators met him at the airport and seized his devices under warrant. He was not arrested immediately, which his family treated as proof of innocence. Patricia Morgan called local reporters and described him as a successful businessman being targeted by a vindictive military wife. Caleb claimed Harbor Shield was legitimate and blamed Vanessa for accounting errors. By lunchtime, my photograph appeared online beside the words, "Suspended Navy Officer." The article mentioned my marriage before my service and the affair before the missing equipment. It did not mention that the deployment had remained on schedule because of the contingency system I built. Captain Hargrove asked whether I wanted a public affairs response. "Not until the command has verified everything," I said. "Silence may allow them to define you. The record will define me." He studied me for a moment. "I hope you are right." That evening Ryan came to my house. 2 naval security officers stood nearby under Mercer's order, so he remained at the sidewalk. He looked thinner than he had in Cabo, but his voice still carried the confidence of someone accustomed to being welcomed through every door. "Claire, we need to settle this before the hearing. Speak to Maya. This is about our marriage. You used our marriage to access my certificate." He glanced toward the officers. "I can give you the house, my retirement accounts, everything you asked for. I have not asked you for anything." "Then what do you want?" The truth entered into the record. His expression hardened. "You think the Navy will thank you for humiliating them publicly? They will protect the institution, not you." "I am protecting the institution." "You are destroying your husband. You did not need my help." He stepped closer to the property line. "Sign a statement saying you approved the initial invoices and failed to review the changes. You will receive a reprimand, retire with benefits, and this ends." "And Maria?" She misunderstood. "The junior sailors on your board? Collateral paperwork." The phrase revealed more than he intended. Those people had names, families, and careers. To Ryan, they were spaces prepared to absorb blame. I looked at the man I had loved for nearly 2 decades and finally understood that his deepest betrayal was not choosing Vanessa. It was believing every person around him could be converted into protection for himself. "No," I said. "Then you may lose everything." "Not everything." I glanced toward the flag above my porch, the one my father had raised every morning after retiring from the Navy. "I still know who I am." Ryan left without another word. The next 5 days were consumed by preparation. Maya organized the evidence chronologically. Mercer secured the financial records. Maria rehearsed her testimony. Vanessa agreed to appear under subpoena. I reviewed my own reports until every timestamp was fixed in memory. The night before the hearing, I removed my wedding ring and placed it inside an envelope. I did not throw it away. Anger was not the purpose of the next day. Accuracy was. At 2,200, Maya called. Maria had failed to arrive at the protected lodging assigned to her. Her car was found outside an empty warehouse, the driver's door unlocked. On the passenger seat sat the digital recorder she was supposed to bring to the hearing. The recording had been erased. At 0615 on the morning of the hearing, Special Agent Mercer called to tell me Maria Torres was alive, and the relief lasted exactly 4 seconds before he added that someone had tried to make her disappear without ever touching her. Investigators found her at her sister's apartment outside Chesapeake, shaken but unharmed. The previous night, Maria had received a message that appeared to come from Naval Security ordering her to report to an off-base warehouse for emergency witness relocation. When she arrived, the building was empty, her phone lost service, and a vehicle blocked the exit. She escaped through a rear loading gate and abandoned her car because she believed it had been tracked. The recorder found on the passenger seat was not the original. Maria had hidden the real device inside her daughter's old lunchbox before leaving home. Ryan's people had erased a copy. The evidence remained intact. At 0730, I entered the main auditorium at Naval Station Norfolk, wearing my service dress blues. Rows of sailors, officers, civilian employees, contractors, and family members filled the hall. Representatives from Naval Supply Systems Command sat near the front. Military reporters occupied the side section. Ryan sat behind his attorney with Patricia and Caleb beside him. Vanessa waited with her counsel across the aisle. When Ryan saw me, he smiled as though he still believed confidence could rewrite a record. Rear Admiral Thomas Keene entered at precisely 0800, and the room stood. He explained that the first portion of the hearing would address administrative findings, contractor misconduct, and my conduct as the responsible logistics officer. Operational details would remain classified. Ryan's attorney spoke first. He described the case as a marital dispute amplified by embarrassment. He said I had approved Harbor Shield invoices, ignored discrepancies, and then blamed my husband after learning of his affair. On the screen appeared 14 documents carrying my digital signature. From the audience, they looked convincing. That had always been the point. His attorney concluded by saying, Lieutenant Commander Morgan cannot transform professional negligence into heroism merely because her marriage failed. I felt hundreds of eyes turn toward me. Maya rose without anger. No one is asking this command to reward a failed marriage. We are asking it to examine the evidence. She began with the server logs. Each forged approval had been created while I was aboard a ship, inspecting another installation, or logged into a separate government terminal. The digital certificate had been exported from my private server while home security footage showed Ryan entering my office. Next came the metadata. Vanessa had altered my review comments through the maintenance account controlled by her company. Maya displayed my original warnings beside the final documents. Where I had written delivery weight inconsistent, the official packet said discrepancy resolved. Where I had requested physical inspection, the altered record claimed I had completed one. The silence in the auditorium deepened. Commander Lewis presented photographs of counterfeit rescue beacons and substandard medical filters. He explained that the defective equipment could have failed during maritime emergencies. Then he described the contingency matrix I had created 2 years earlier, the system that allowed reserve supplies to be moved without delaying deployment. Lieutenant Commander Morgan's work did not merely preserve records, he said. It preserved readiness. Maria entered under naval security escort. She carried herself carefully, but her voice remained steady. She testified that Ryan had ordered her to sign false receiving reports and threatened her husband's employment. Maya asked whether Ryan ever claimed I had approved the missing shipments. Yes, Maria said. He told me Commander Morgan signed whatever was placed in front of her. The original recording played through the auditorium speakers. Ryan's voice filled the room. Claire signs whatever lands in front of her. She is a bookkeeper with rank. I did not look toward his family. I did not need to. Maya then called Vanessa. She admitted creating altered records, validating false invoices, and helping Ryan redirect genuine military-grade equipment to private storage. Why use Commander Morgan's signature? Maya asked. Vanessa looked at me for the first time. Because no one questioned Claire. Her name made everything look safe. Did Commander Morgan know? No. Did Ryan intend to protect her if the scheme was discovered? Vanessa's voice broke. No. He said she would take the fall because the Navy would rather punish one officer than expose a contractor scandal. Ryan rose suddenly. She is lying to save herself. Rear Admiral Keene ordered him to sit. Mercer presented the financial trail. Harbor Shield payments, overseas resale accounts, the private flight to Cabo, and messages showing Ryan planned to report the irregularities after the deployment. His attorney stopped objecting. There was nothing left to reinterpret. Finally, Maya introduced the preservation log from 2:31 that Tuesday morning. My decision to lock the private server had prevented 9,000 files from being deleted. The attempted deletions originated from the resort in Cabo. Rear Admiral Keene reviewed the findings for several minutes. No one moved. Then he looked directly at Ryan. This command finds substantial evidence of conspiracy to defraud the United States, unauthorized access to protected systems, falsification of procurement records, and deliberate compromise of operational equipment. He turned toward me. The investigation finds no evidence that Lieutenant Commander Claire Morgan participated in or knowingly approved these acts. My lungs released a breath I had been holding for days. Keene was not finished. An aide placed a dark folder before him. A portion of Lieutenant Commander Morgan's readiness report has been cleared for public acknowledgement. He opened it and read aloud. Her immediate preservation of digital evidence prevented destruction of critical records. Her contingency planning restored deficient inventory without delaying deployment. Her actions protected more than 400 sailors and preserved the operational readiness of the assigned force. The room became perfectly still. Then Captain Hargrove stood. Commander Lewis followed. Maria rose next. Within seconds, sailors and civilian employees throughout the auditorium were on their feet. The applause did not feel like victory over Ryan. It felt like the return of something I had nearly allowed his lies to take from me. My own name. Ryan was escorted from the auditorium to meet federal investigators. Caleb's access to Navy contracts was suspended, and Harbor Shield was barred from further government work. Vanessa's cooperation would be considered separately, but it would not erase her choices. Patricia remained seated, staring at the stage where the woman she had dismissed as a bookkeeper had just been recognized by an admiral. 3 months later, my divorce was finalized. The house remained mine. Ryan's assets were frozen for restitution, and the criminal case continued without requiring me to build my life around its outcome. I returned to duty and helped establish a training program for young logistics officers on contractor fraud, digital security, and the importance of questioning paperwork that looked too perfect. Maria became one of its first instructors. On the wall of our classroom, I placed a simple sentence: "Quiet work still saves lives." I never opened the final letter Ryan sent me. I no longer needed his apology to confirm what the evidence had already proven. He believed my discipline made me weak, my trust made me blind, and my quietness made me easy to sacrifice. He was wrong about all three. If you have ever been underestimated because you worked quietly, stayed loyal, or carried responsibilities no one bothered to understand, remember this: silence is not weakness, and protecting yourself is not betrayal. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and whether someone has ever mistaken your kindness for permission to use you. Subscribe for more stories about courageous women, hidden strength, military honor, and the moment the truth finally stands up in a room where everyone once looked away.